Okay, brief recap. In the last lecture, I talked briefly about surface level culture, which is also popular culture, but usually we call it pop culture. And what's important to remember is that pop culture is the surface, and there's always something below the surface. So, what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at the intermediate level culture, and basically, we're going to look at the three main important vocabulary terms here: what the symbols, what those symbols mean, and what norms there are. But then we're going to talk a little bit more, and then we'll get to the deep culture. But basically, what's happening at the deep culture, the traditions, beliefs, and values, what our culture values, what our culture believes, the traditions that we have give rise to norms, and the norms give rise to what we see in popular culture. So we're looking at it top down, but in they're really created more bottom up, and we will definitely talk about this in class because it's both simple to understand and also complex. Okay, so what are symbols? Well, the symbols that we use can be the words. It can be um, nonverbals, basically. Okay, so um, for example, okay, let's use the word rich. Students frequently say to me, "Oh, I'd like to be, one of my goals is to be rich or to make enough money." So that's the symbol, right? The word that we use. What does it mean? Okay, so it's really interesting because when I've asked students what they mean when they say they want to have enough money, it, the dollar amount varies quite a bit. So people attach different meanings uh, to the same word, and these words can be influenced both by the culture that we're in and by just our own personality. Okay, so meanings are the interpretations we attach to the symbols. Okay, and um, cultural norms are okay, expectations within the culture of what is proper or what is improper behavior. We talked about this in the last class. Uh, for many people in the class, a cultural norm is to take the shoes off when entering the house. That's a family norm. It's also a cultural norm. And my husband and I had a discussion about this um, right after class, where he was saying he thinks that the shoes off is in a sense it's a more Eastern idea, because he said, for example, you never enter a mosque with shoes on. It's considered incredibly improper. But you would never enter a church barefoot, a Christian church barefoot. So that there's it's likely, and there, I mean, there's also people take their shoes off. I had a student who wanted to be a doctor, and he said, with all the germs and other yucky stuff on the ground, he would never bring that stuff into his house. Okay, so um, cultural norms, as I said before, they're not always easy to see because we grew up with them, and it's just things that we expect people to do, and we don't notice them until someone breaks them. So imagine you're in the classroom and somebody comes in their bathing suit, or somebody comes into class in very formal attire. Okay, and you would say, "That's weird. That's you mean at some level you would be saying that's not one of our norms of culture." I know when students first started coming to class in what I considered pajamas, I felt that was breaking the norm. I guess it is now a norm. Okay, so norms vary within a setting. Well, what do we mean by setting? So when it's where something takes place, and we're talking about the physical. We have certain norms for the classroom, certain norms for the office, certain norms for our family house, but also the cultural geographical locale, where there are certain norms for Japan and certain norms for Bolivia and certain norms for the United States. So that's when we say setting, it's got a couple of meanings. Okay. Whoops, I went too far. Nope, I didn't. I'm bouncing back and forth. Okay, there we go. It's just too large here. Okay. Still at the level of the intermediate level culture. And remember, what we're looking at here are symbols, meanings, and norms. All right. Whenever people are meeting, are interacting, they have a goal. There's an interactional goal. Why are we meeting? Okay. There are also um, in this interaction between two people, there's the relationship expectation. Are we going to be formal? Are we going to be informal? Um, is um, what's the task or the social tone that you want to use? Many years ago, I used to say to my students, because of the nature of the class, I used to teach first year experience. Almost that was like the only class I taught, and first year experience was very much of almost like a workshop. That's how I taught it, and workshop slash counseling session almost. And so I said to students, I am very comfortable if you address me by my first name. You can call me Marguerite. um, so I wanted the relationship to be a little more informal. Some students were okay with it. Some students felt basically that that was not appropriate for the classroom, for the setting, and their interaction goal, was that it was to have, a professional relationship with the professor. Okay, so the last key vocabulary term from this section on intermediate level culture is cultural competence skills, which is uh, in any situation, you need to have a certain knowledge of how people are expected to behave, and you also need to have the specific skills to apply in that interaction scene. As a young adult at college level, I had knowledge of how interaction should go, but I was also, I don't know if shy is the right word. I was very unsure of myself. So I did not have the skills because I was too afraid to apply the knowledge that I had. Okay, so blah. Symbols, meanings, cultural norms, and the cultural norms, we have these goals, expectations, skills that go into it. Now we're going to look at, oh shoot, forgot it. Yes, two words to talk a little bit more about culture. Okay, here we go. I had a mistake there. So when we're talking about normative and subjective culture, we're looking more at the deep level culture, because here we're looking at, uh, traditions, we're looking at values, we're looking at beliefs. So remember that culture is the idea of the from my old textbook, languages, values, beliefs, traditions that people share. So a normative culture would be when you look at the entire group, what is it that everyone in this group shares? What experiences, what traditions, what customs do people share? Okay. It, all right, let's I'm going to speak just from my own experience. Sometimes when people were talking about, I asked favorite holiday. A couple people said Christmas. Okay, so you know, I would say that in the United States, when we're talking about normative culture among people who would say that they were Christian, they would say that Christmas is a time to get together with family and celebrate the birth of Christ, or if they're not, if they're more secular, they might say it's a time to get together and show that you love family by sharing of gifts. Okay? The subjective culture says, okay, yes, this is the normative culture. This is what my family, my group, my community believes, but my beliefs are a little bit different. Okay? Um I I'm trying to think of a great example. It it's you understand what the normative culture is, but you're saying, well, things are based on uh, what's happened in my life, and my own personality. My my idea of culture is a little bit different. I thought this point was interesting. Right. Each person carries his or her or his subjective iceberg with multi-layered stories to tell. Okay, if you want to develop your intercultural communication, you have to learn to listen, listen more, and listen deeply. Okay. Three three more major points to talk about. Deep level, we talk about what makes up the deep level of this iceberg, and this is traditions, beliefs, and values. Everybody has traditions, they have beliefs, they have values, and we're looking at, in terms of the culture, what are traditions that are culturally shared. And traditions include myths, legends, rituals, ceremonies. um, Tradition. When I was growing up, we always went to my grandparents' house for Easter, and one of the things we did was we had hard boiled eggs that were cut into relatively small pieces, and my grandfather would go around the table and say in Ukrainian, uh, he would say something in Ukrainian and put a piece of egg, and we would have to respond, but usually he'd put the egg in our mouth, so we were responding through egg. Okay, that was a tradition, a family tradition. I'm assuming that other Ukrainian Orthodox shared that. I'm not really sure, but how are they passed on from one generation to the next? Either orally or written. And why do we have these traditions? As the book says, it reinforces solidarity. It says to me, I am a member of this group. This is my in group. It helps. Then we have a communal memory, and it helps the culture to be stable. Okay, so traditions frequently stem from our beliefs. What is it that we believe in? For example, these tend to be big beliefs. I'm not talking about just having a discussion. My belief is that milk chocolate is better than dark chocolate. We're not talking about that kind of belief. We're talking about the big questions. How did human beings appear? How did they originate? Concepts of time, space, reality. Is there a supreme being? What does life mean? What does death mean? Is there a possibility of rebirth? Okay. Cultural values have to do with how we're evaluating, right? As they say, value comes from evaluation. What's good, what's bad, or what's desirable to do, what's fair, what's unfair. Okay. And it differs from culture to culture. I think I shared that one of the things that we were taught to value in my family was education. Okay, that like my grandmother, my father's mother, had to drop out of school after eighth grade to help support her family. She was the oldest of 11 or 12, 11, oldest of 11. So she always regretted that she did not get to finish her education. So for her, education equals good. Right? And so that is that is part of my family culture. Okay, we can go um, bigger. So currently, I am living in pretty much in the countryside. A lot of the people, if we went back 50 years, people up here would have been farmers. Most people now actually, go into the city to work. And what they thought of was good. This is interesting to me. Was independence, right? You have to. You don't want to. Okay, I'm saying this all wrong, because it's both independence and helping out other people. Okay, so you don't want to depend on other people, yet you're always willing to lend a hand. I think there's a little contradictory there. Okay, so it is what the culture believes is good or bad. What happens frequently is when we are not part of that culture, we can look at another culture and we can say, well, this behavior is wrong. This culture thinks it's good. They value this, but I think it's strange, it's weird, it's wrong. Okay. So, my guess is you're going to have questions about possibly traditions, beliefs, and values. Remember, this is going to be the topic of your journal. So think about these terms, read about them in the textbook, listen to the lecture. If you have questions, put it in the survey and bring your questions to class so we can make sure that we talk about them. And then just I thought this last section was cute. It was a little silly, okay? Just remember, culture is complex. And we get used to our own culture. As they say, it's like a pair of sunglasses that we've gotten used to. When we have to get a new pair of sunglasses, they don't feel right. So they can make us feel disoriented. Well, this disorientation or this discomfort might be based on the fact that what we're dealing with is something that is unfamiliar or unknown. Okay, and it's almost, I believe it's a biological uh, thing. I can't think of the word for human beings. When something is unknown, we tend to fear it. We think it's a threat. So we want to make sure that we're not being ethnocentric. We're not putting our own ethnic group at the center. We're saying it is, wow, there's so much variety in the world. Okay. And basically what they're saying is we can improve our intercultural communication. Well, we can improve the competence, so we won't be incompetent. We just have to understand what is going on. We need to develop the tools, and we need to practice using those tools. All right, this last section was a little long. I hope you took a break if you needed it, and we will talk more about these concepts in class on Monday.